The magnolia air felt heavy, sweet, almost choking. I stood outside Grace Hollow Chapel. White dress on, veil pinned tight. But my hands, they shook like leaves in a storm. Inside, 200 voices. Laughs. Whispered bets about how perfect today would be. None of them knew my chest burned like fire. Last night, someone slid an envelope under my door. No name. Just one torn edge. Inside, a single photo. Samuel, my fiancé, and my mother, Evelyn, wrapped around each other in his truck behind our family barn. Timestamp. Just past midnight. The rose perfume still clung to the photo. Her signature scent, sharp and floral. Felt like it burned my fingers when I held it. I didn't cry. Didn't scream. I just stared until the walls of my apartment felt like they'd crush me whole. Dad's words echoed from years ago. Family protects its own, Harper. Always. What would he say now? His wife and my future husband, laughing behind my back. Dawn came, gray and quiet. I gathered everything. The texts I'd found on Samuel's phone. The voicemail where Mom whispered, "Tonight was worth the risk." The photo, still warm from my hands gripping it all night. The bells of Grace Hollow rang, pulling me back. My father waited by the doors, smiling like the world still made sense. He reached for my arm. I stepped back, slow. Inside, the choir hummed, soft and holy. The scent of old wood and candles filled the air. I felt my spine straighten. I wasn't running. I wasn't forgiving. When Pastor Mullins asked, "Who gives this woman to be married?" I'd have my answer ready. And it wouldn't be what they expected. Would you forgive them? Or let everyone hear the truth? Comment 1 or 2. The sun rose slow over Savannah, spilling gold across my apartment floor. The smell of last night's cold coffee still lingered. I sat by the window, my hands wrapped tight around a chipped mug. I'd been a nurse for 20 years. Long nights, tired feet, faces of strangers burned into memory. It wasn't glamorous, but it kept me steady. It paid the bills, helped me care for Dad when his back gave out, and kept Mom comfortable when she stopped working years ago. That's who I was. The daughter who carried weight so no one else had to. When Samuel Cole walked into my life 2 years ago, I thought my luck had shifted. He had that kind of smile, easy, honest, like he meant every word he spoke. Savannah folks whispered about him being the golden firefighter, brave and faithful. He brought wildflowers to my work shifts, cooked dinner at my place after 16-hour nights, made promises about forever. Dad adored him from the start. Samuel would help fix the porch railing, drink black coffee at our kitchen table, and talk baseball with him until the sun dipped low. Even Mom, who rarely praised anyone, called him a good man. Her words were clipped but approving. "Harper, you've done well." She'd say, "Never. He makes you happy." Looking back, it feels like I missed the warning signs. The way she'd linger when he stayed for dinner, asking about his day a little too softly. The faint trace of her rose perfume on his jacket once, when I hung it by the door. I brushed it off, told myself love didn't doubt. The Lane family home sat on the edge of the marsh, all creaking wood and slow fans. Mornings smelled like pecan waffles and coffee, Dad reading the paper at the kitchen counter, Mom humming as she set out plates. That routine, so ordinary, always felt safe. Now it feels like a memory from someone else's life. I drained my coffee and stared at the street below. Savannah was waking up, vendors rolling carts, cicadas starting their slow chorus. Normal life, moving forward, while my own felt stuck in a storm I didn't ask for. Tomorrow, I was supposed to wear white, smile, and say vows. Instead, I kept hearing Mom's voice, soft and low from that voicemail. Tonight was worth the risk. Each word carved deeper than the last. 2 weeks before the wedding, the cracks began to show. They weren't loud. Just there. little things I almost ignored. Samuel's work shifts grew longer. He'd text past midnight, saying a fire kept him late. But our joint account showed purchases he couldn't explain. 2 bottles of imported wine, the same brand Mom raved about last Christmas. Dinner charges at a quiet bistro by the river, on nights he swore he was on call. I stared at those bank statements in the glow of my laptop. My chest felt tight, like a band pulling tighter each breath. I told myself it was stress. People get careless before weddings. Maybe he was planning a surprise. Maybe I wanted that excuse more than I believed it. One evening, I stopped by Dad's place. He was out back, oiling the hinges on the old porch swing. The marsh smelled like salt and pine. I sat beside him, silent, while he worked. He glanced up, noticing my quiet, wedding nerves. He asked, wiping his hands on a rag. His voice was calm, steady, like always. That voice had carried me through long nights in the ER and every heartbreak before now. I wanted to tell him everything. The wine, the late charges, the faint trace of rose perfume I'd found again on Samuel's jacket last week. But Dad already carried so much. Mom's moods, the church folks leaning on him for advice, his own aches from years of work. So I swallowed the words and nodded. Something like that, I said, watching the sun sink behind the marsh. The cicadas buzzed louder, filling the silence we didn't dare break. Inside, Mom's laughter drifted from the kitchen. Sharp and bright, mixing with the clink of glasses. Samuel's voice followed, low and smooth, talking about some call he'd been on. I couldn't make out the words, but I heard the tone. Too warm. Too familiar. Dad called me in for supper, his hand resting gentle on my shoulder. Harper, you'll be all right. Samuel's a good man. He meant to comfort me. It only made my stomach twist harder. That night, I lay awake in my apartment. Streetlights casting pale shadows on the ceiling. The voicemail from Mom played in my head, over and over. Tonight was worth the risk. Each replay felt heavier, like a stone pressing on my chest. By the third night, my nerves were frayed raw. Sleep didn't come easy anymore. The shadows in my apartment felt like they leaned closer, listening. Samuel had left his phone on my counter that evening. The screen lit up while he showered. A notification flashed. See you tomorrow. Usual spot. No name. Just a heart emoji at the end. My stomach dropped. I scrolled fast, hands trembling. No full messages. Most were deleted. But the calendar app showed a repeating event. Every Thursday. One word, hollow. Our family barn sat on Hollow Creek Road. I snapped a photo of the screen, my pulse thudding in my ears. Each click of the camera felt like proof stacking higher, even if it broke me to hold it. Lying back on the couch, I let the memories come. I was 9 again, watching Mom rearrange my birthday cake candles because 5 blue ones in a row looked tacky. 15. Wearing a dress I loved, until she said it. Made me look desperate. Even last year, she'd taken over my dress fitting, telling the seamstress, "Harper's taste is plain. We'll keep it classic." Her voice always soft, always polite. But sharp enough to slice through me, quiet enough that no one else noticed. Now, I couldn't tell if Samuel loved me. Or if I'd been just another thing Mom wanted to control. A wedding for her, not for me. The night outside hummed with cicadas and distant freight horns. Savannah's marsh air slipped through the cracked window, heavy and warm. I sat still, clutching my phone, replaying every moment that felt off but brushed aside. The wine. The perfume. The laughter drifting from the kitchen when they thought I couldn't hear. Tomorrow, I'd dig deeper. Check the joint account again. Pull copies of the emails he deleted. I needed more than suspicion. I needed undeniable proof. The clock blinked past midnight, the room lit by its red glow. Every sound felt louder. The hum of my fridge, the click of pipes, my own breath. I whispered to myself, just to break the silence. Dad can't know. Not yet. Not until I'm sure. I turned off the lamp and sat in the dark, eyes fixed on the faint light of my laptop. My cursor hovered over the email tab. Something new had just come in. No subject. No name. I clicked and froze. The email opened with a single line. You deserve to know what they're hiding. No greeting. No signature. Just one attachment. I hesitated, staring at the glow of my laptop. The hum of my fridge sounded like thunder in the quiet apartment. Outside, the cicadas had gone still, like even they wanted to hear what came next. I clicked. The photo loaded slow. Samuel's truck. Parked near Hollow Creek Road. Headlights off, his silhouette leaning against the hood. And beside him, a woman's frame. Her scarf. Rose-colored, silky. The same scarf Mom wore to Sunday service last week. My throat tightened. The timestamp said Tuesday. 2 nights ago. The email address was a jumble of numbers and letters. No reply option. It felt like someone was watching me, waiting to see what I'd do with it. I pushed the laptop shut, the sound loud in the still room. My hands shook so hard I had to grip the edge of the table. For a moment, I wanted to pretend it didn't matter. To believe Samuel loved me, that Mom wouldn't cross that line. But my gut told me different. Every late night, every perfume trace, every clipped smile she gave when Samuel wasn't looking. I pulled open my drawer and grabbed the folder I'd started. Bank statements. Screenshots of texts. Now this new photo. The air smelled faintly of old wood and detergent. Savannah's heat pressed against the windows, thick and heavy. I wiped sweat from my brow and whispered. All right. No more guessing. I called Jenna, my friend from the hospital, someone I trusted. Her voice was groggy, rough with sleep. Harper, it's after midnight. You okay? No, I said. I need you to help me pull phone records. Samuel's. Mom's. I'll explain later. She didn't ask questions. Just muttered. Meet me at the hospital cafe tomorrow morning. I hung up and leaned back against the couch. The ceiling fan spun slow, each creak sounding like a countdown. I could already feel something breaking loose inside me. Not rage. Not yet. Just a cold, sharp focus. If they thought I'd keep silent, they didn't know me at all. The hospital cafe smelled like burnt coffee and bleach. Early light cut through the blinds, striping the linoleum floor. Jenna sat in the corner booth, hair in a messy bun, laptop already open. She didn't waste time. All right, I pulled what I could. Samuel's calls. Evelyn's too. Her voice was low, careful, like the walls might be listening. She turned the screen toward me. Rows of numbers, dates, and times. 3 calls stood out. After midnight, every Thursday, lasting over an hour. Samuel's phone. Mom's phone. My chest felt hollow, like someone had scooped me out. I traced the timestamps with my finger, my hand shaking just slightly. They weren't even subtle, Jenna said. Her lips tightened. You sure you're ready for this? It's only gonna get uglier. I nodded, eyes fixed on the screen. I didn't trust my voice just yet. She pulled up another tab. Samuel's card activity. Dinner charges at Magnolia Bistro, the same place the wine receipts came from. Always paired with charges for gas near Hollow Creek. The cafe machine hissed, releasing a burst of steam. The sound made me flinch, pulling me back to the present. My coffee sat untouched, cooling fast. Do you want me to dig deeper? Jenna asked. I can pull text logs, maybe get security footage from the bistro. No, I said, finally meeting her eyes. Not yet. I need to see how far this goes first. Quietly. The air between us felt heavy, filled with things I couldn't say. Like how every detail confirmed the ache in my gut. Like how my mother had smiled at me just yesterday, telling me the centerpieces were Perfect. Her voice sugar, sweet. Jenna reached across the table, her hand warm on mine. You don't have to handle this alone, Harper. I nodded again, swallowing hard. But deep down, I knew. This part, I had to do myself. The proof was piling up, and with each piece, the cold focus inside me sharpened. I slid the folder across the table, adding Jenna's files to my growing stack. The edges of the paper felt rough under my fingers, grounding me. One more layer of truth to carry. Thank you, I whispered. Then I stood, leaving my coffee untouched. The cafe's hum followed me out into the morning heat, the day already pressing heavy on my skin. Each step to my car felt deliberate, each breath steadier than the last. The road to Hollow Creek was empty by dusk. Spanish moss hung low from the oaks, swaying in the heavy air. Crickets chirped loud, filling every gap of silence. I parked a half-mile from the barn. Cut the engine. Let the hum of the marsh swallow me whole. The barn sat dark against the fading sky. Its old tin roof glinted dull under the first hints of moonlight. I remembered the time Samuel forgot his wallet after dinner. How Mom would vanish to check the freezer whenever he stopped by. Little gaps that hadn't felt so sharp until now. I stepped through the grass, careful not to snap a twig. The smell of damp earth and hay hit me as I reached the barn door. It creaked low, like it hadn't been opened in weeks. But inside, it told a different story. Fresh tire tracks carved through the dirt floor. 2 coffee mugs sat near the back wall, still faintly warm when I touched them. One had lipstick smeared on the rim, Mom's shade, deep coral. I crouched, running my fingers along the ground. There, half buried near the tracks, lay a folded receipt. Magnolia Bistro. 2 entrailles, 2 glasses of wine. Timestamp. Last night. Just after 10. My chest tightened. Each piece added weight to the folder I carried in my car. Each made it harder to breathe, but clearer to see. The barn's rafters groaned as a gust of wind pushed through. I looked up, half expecting to see shadows move. Instead, I saw a glint. Samuel's lighter. The one engraved with his initials, lying in the dirt near the mugs. I slipped it into my pocket, my pulse thudding in my ears. The night air pressed close, thick with humidity and something sharper. Maybe fear. Maybe fury. A noise cut through the crickets. A soft buzz, my phone. An unknown number. A single text. They'll be there tomorrow, before dark. The screen burned in my palm as I stared at the words. No name. No context. Just another piece of a puzzle I wasn't sure I wanted to finish. I turned toward the marsh, the barn at my back. Tomorrow, I'd have my chance to see it all with my own eyes. And I'd be ready. The house was quiet when I pulled into the driveway. Only the soft hum of the porch light cut through the still night. The cicadas had gone quiet, like the marsh was holding its breath. I let myself in with my old brass key. The door groaned, the smell of cedar and lemon polish spilling out. It was the same smell from my childhood, somehow warm and cold all at once. The hallway photos stared back at me. Family portraits, all perfectly arranged. None of them felt like mine anymore. I dropped my bag on the bench and sank into Dad's old armchair. The cushion sagged, familiar but heavy. The ceiling fan above creaked with each turn, counting seconds I couldn't stop. I thought about Hollow Creek. The mugs, the receipt, Samuel's lighter, the text still glowing in my mind, each piece twisting like a knife, but also clearing the fog. My chest ached, but not from heartbreak. Something colder had taken root. Resolve, maybe. A quiet promise that I wouldn't let them take more. My eyes drifted to a photo on the mantel. Me at 17, in a prom dress I loved. I remembered Mom's voice, soft but cutting. That color makes you look washed out, Harper. You'll thank me later. She'd swapped it for another dress before I left, smiling for the camera like she'd saved me. That was her way. Always deciding, always correcting, until I wasn't sure what was mine anymore. Even now, I wondered if Samuel had been her idea from the start. A man to mold, a son-in-law to admire, even if it meant hollowing me out. The kitchen clock ticked loud, each second heavier than the last. I thought about Dad asleep upstairs, unaware of the storm beneath his roof. He still believed Mom was the woman he married. Still called her Evie, with that soft look in his eyes. I wanted to tell him everything. But the words stuck, heavy as stone in my throat. Not yet. Not until I had all of it. I stood, the floorboards cool under my feet, and walked to the kitchen. The scent of coffee grounds lingered, stale from this morning. I poured a glass of water, my hands steady despite the churn inside. Tomorrow I'd face them. Not with shouting, not with tears, but with every piece of truth I had. The kitchen light was on when I came back down. Mom sat at the table, robe cinched tight, sipping tea. The scent of her rose perfume drifted faint in the air. She looked up, her smile soft but thin. Couldn't sleep either. Her voice, smooth as ever, carried no crack. I pulled a chair out, its legs scraping the tile. "Long night," I said. The words felt heavy, like each one had to push through my teeth. She stirred her tea slowly, the spoon clicking against porcelain. "Big day coming." "Nerves are normal, Harper." I studied her hands. Steady manicured, no trimmer. But her eyes, quick, sharp, watching me as if measuring. "You were out late," I said, keeping my tone flat. "Church meeting run long." A pause, barely there. Then a smooth nod.
"Yes."
"Fundraiser details with the board. You know how it is." I leaned back, letting the chair creak. The board meet at Hollow Creek now. Her spoon froze mid-stir. For a second, the kitchen felt still. Only the faint hum of the refrigerator broke the silence. She recovered quick, setting the spoon down. "Don't be ridiculous. What would I be doing there?" I didn't answer. Just traced my finger along the wood grain of the table. Her perfume seemed stronger now, clinging to the night air. Her lips tightened. "Harper, if you're worried about the wedding, don't invent ghosts. Samuel loves you." My stomach turned at the name. I met her gaze, steady. Does he? Or does he just love Magnolia Bistro and late night drives? Her face stayed calm, but her knuckles whitened where she gripped the cup. "That's enough," she said softly, not a whisper but close. I didn't push harder. Not yet. I needed her off balance, not hostile. I stood, sliding the chair back slow. "We'll see tomorrow," I murmured. Her eyes flickered, just for a second. Like she knew exactly what I meant. The clock on the wall ticked loud, echoing through the quiet kitchen. Neither of us spoke again. But the air between us felt heavier than ever. The house felt colder upstairs, even with the summer air thick outside. I sat on the edge of my bed, the mattress dipping beneath me. The ticking of the hall clock blood through the quiet, steady and sharp. I thought of years past. 5th grade, when I won the county art contest. Mom told the reporter I was good for a beginner. Then posed for photos like the credit was hers. Senior year, when I wanted to tour a nursing school 2 states over. She said, "Stay close, Harper. You'll thank me someday." And tore up the brochure when Dad wasn't home. Her voice had always been sweet, wrapped in sugar, but every word carried weight, pressing me smaller, keeping me in her lines. Even now, with Samuel, I wondered if any of it had been mine. My love, my choices, or just hers. I rose, the floorboards cool beneath my feet. The window by my dresser rattled softly as the marsh wind pushed through the screens. Outside, the trees swayed like shadows on water, slow and heavy. I opened my nightstand drawer and pulled out the folder. Bank statements, receipts, Samuel's lighter from Hollow Creek. all stacked neat, ready. The ceiling fan hummed, slow and even. I stared at the papers, my fingers tracing their edges. Not shaking this time. Not anymore. Downstairs, the fridge clicked on, a dull hum filling the silence. Mom's footsteps padded softly in the kitchen, then faded toward her room. I knew she'd be awake long after, pacing, planning, convinced I'd keep swallowing everything. Not this time. I whispered it into the dark, my voice low but firm. No more hiding. Not for her. Not for him. The hall clock chimed once, the sound rolling through the house like a warning. I slid the folder back into my bag and zipped it closed. Tomorrow I'd end this. Not with whispers. Not with tears. A vibration broke the silence. My phone on the nightstand. Another text from that same unknown number. Just 3 words. Before they leave. I stared at the glow of the screen, the weight of it settling deep in my chest. The marsh wind pushed against the window again, rattling it like a soft knock. Tomorrow would be the line. And I'd be the one drawing it. The sky was deep blue when I reached Hollow Creek again. The marsh smelled of salt and damp earth, the kind of air that clings to skin. I parked behind the tree line, lights off, engine cold. The barn stood quiet in the distance. But a faint glow leaked through the cracks in the wood. Headlights swept across the field, slow and deliberate, before clicking dark. I crouched low, grass wet beneath my palms. The night buzzed with crickets, louder than my own breath. A car door opened, then another. Samuel's voice drifted across the field, low and easy. "Thought you'd cancel," he said. I couldn't make out every word, but the tone was warm. Too warm. Mom's laugh followed, soft and breathy. The same laugh she used when company came over, when she wanted the room to love her. Only now, it was just for him. I crept closer, each step sinking into the damp soil. Through a gap in the wood, I saw them. Her hand on his arm, his head bent toward hers, their silhouettes close enough to blur. My chest burned, but no tears came. The hurt felt sharper, cleaner, like ice cutting through. I stayed still, watching, letting each second carve itself into memory. Samuel pulled something from his jacket. A small black box. Not a ring. A key. He placed it in her hand. "After the wedding," he murmured. "Everything stays ours. Just like we planned." The words settled like lead in my ears. They weren't just reckless. They were building a life on top of mine, waiting for me to vanish quietly. Mom slipped the key into her robe pocket, her face lit by the barn's lone bulb. I saw her smile. It wasn't joy, it was satisfaction. I stepped back into the shadows, careful not to snap a twig. My pulse steadied, slow and deliberate. Every sound, the rustle of leaves, the distant rush of the tide, felt sharper, louder, like the world was holding its breath with me. In my bag, my phone vibrated once. A new message from the same unknown number. "Record this." I lifted the phone. Camera steady despite the chill running through me. The screen glowed faint, catching Samuel's hand brushing her cheek. One more touch I could never unsee. I ended the clip, slipped the phone back, and turned toward my car. No rage. No shaking. Just a cold, even focus as the barn light dimmed behind me. Tomorrow, the chapel wouldn't be a wedding. It would be a reckoning. The streets were near empty when I pulled back into town. Streetlights flickered, their glow stretching long shadows across the pavement. The hum of my car's engine felt too loud, like it didn't belong in the quiet. I parked outside Jenna's apartment. The air smelled of wet asphalt and faint exhaust. She opened the door before I knocked, hair pulled back, eyes wide. "You got it," she whispered, pulling me inside. I slid the phone across her kitchen counter. The screen lit up, showing Samuel's hand brushing Mom's cheek. The sound of their voices, soft, warm, plotting, spilled from the speaker. Jenna didn't speak for a moment. She just pressed her lips tight, her knuckles whitening around a mug she held. "Harper," she said finally, voice low. "This isn't just betrayal. This is a setup. They're planning to keep this going." I nodded, the weight of it sitting heavy but solid in my chest. I'm not letting them walk me down that aisle like nothing's wrong. Jenna pulled her laptop closer. "We can do this clean. No screaming. No scene you can't walk away from." She opened a calendar. "Guests arrive at 11. Pastor starts at noon. You've got 200 people who think they're there for a wedding. We show the footage before vows. Let the truth talk." I traced the edge of my folder. Bank statements, receipts, now the video. Each paper felt heavier than the last, but my hand stayed steady. "Can you get someone to capture the reaction?" I asked. "Not for drama. For proof." Jenna nodded. "I know a freelancer. No bylines, no leaks before you say so." The kitchen clock ticked loud, marking every decision. The hum of the fridge filled the gaps between our words. "What about your dad?" Jenna asked softly. "He doesn't know. Should he?" I stared at the folder, then at the glow of my phone. Dad's voice, gentle and tired, echoed in my head. "Family protects its own. Harper." I shook my head. "Not yet. Not until I have to." Jaina slid the laptop closed and met my eyes. "Then tomorrow, you don't just survive this. You end it." The room felt still, the quiet pressing against my skin. I slipped the folder back into my bag. The zippers rasped loud in the silence. Outside, a car passed, its tires hissing on the wet road. The taillights faded, leaving only the dim glow of the street lamp. Tomorrow, I wouldn't be the bride they expected. I'd be the storm they never saw coming. Morning light crept through the blinds, soft and pale. The apartment smelled of stale coffee and rain from last night's storm. I sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a cold mug I hadn't touched. The folder lay open in front of me. Receipts, bank records, Samuel's lighter, and the video from Hollow Creek. Each piece stared back like a wound that wouldn't close. Outside, the street was quiet. Only the distant rumble of a delivery truck broke the stillness. It felt like the whole world was holding its breath, waiting. I thought about Dad. Probably at the church by now. He'd be checking pews, greeting guests, telling the organist to keep things soft. He had no idea the day wasn't going to be the blessing he imagined. My chest tightened. Part of me wanted to let it go, to keep the peace for him, to let Samuel and Mom rot in their secrets while I disappeared quietly. But each time I pictured them smiling, my jaw tightened. I stood and poured the cold coffee down the sink. The drain gurgled, echoing in the empty room. That sound alone made the silence feel heavier. In the mirror by the door, my reflection looked older. My hair, dark and loose, framed a face that hadn't slept. But my eyes, sharp, steady, didn't flinch this time. The phone buzzed on the counter. A new text from Jenna. "Everything's in place. You ready?" I typed back. Fingers slow but certain. "As ready as I'll ever be." The clock ticked over to 7. The sound was sharp, almost loud in the stillness. Hours left until the chapel filled, until the whispers turned to stares. I zipped the folder into my bag and slung it over my shoulder. The weight grounded me, solid and cold. Not dread, not nerves. Just the weight of truth I couldn't ignore. When I opened the door, the air outside felt heavy. The marsh breeze carried the faint scent of salt and magnolia. The same scent that clung to the photo from that first envelope. I locked the door behind me, the click echoing through the empty hall. This wasn't a walk to a wedding. It was a walk to an ending I had to write myself. Grace Hollow Chapel loomed quiet in the morning haze. The spire cut into the gray sky, bells chiming soft as I walked up the steps. The scent of polished wood and candle wax drifted out from the open doors. Jenna was already inside, laptop bag slung over her shoulder. Beside her stood a man I didn't know, camera strapped across his chest. His handshake was firm, silent. He didn't need names. He was here for one thing: documentation. The sanctuary was empty except for us. Sunlight filtered through the stained glass, casting colored patterns across the pews. The silence pressed in, heavy but steady. Jenna set her laptop on the altar rail. "We'll cue the video," she said quietly. "When the pastor asks for objections, we cut the music. Show everything. No speeches unless you want them." I nodded, my fingers tracing the spine of the folder in my bag. The edges felt rough, grounding. This wasn't anger now. Just resolve. The photographer adjusted his lens, testing the light. The click of the shutter echoed through the space. Each sound felt like a marker, a countdown to noon. My stomach tightened as I looked toward the front pew. That's where Mom would sit, emerald dress, smile painted perfect. And Samuel, waiting at the altar, wearing the same calm grin he used when lying came easy. For a moment, doubt crept in. Dad's face flashed in my mind. Warm, unsuspecting, believing today would bless us. The thought of breaking him twisted my chest. Jenna's hand touched my arm, light but steady. "Harper, this isn't about hurting him. It's about ending their game before it swallows you whole." I exhaled slow, steady. The smell of old wood and candle smoke filled my lungs. It steadied me more than it should have. The laptop screen flickered as Jenna cued the clip from Hollow Creek. Samuel's hand brushing Mom's cheek froze on the first frame. Even muted, it felt louder than the bells outside. The man with the camera met my eyes, his voice calm. "I'll stay in the back. No one will see me until it's over." I nodded once. Each movement felt deliberate, like I was walking through water. Slow, heavy, but sure. The bells chimed again, marking the hour. Only 3 more until the pews would fill. Until the whispers began. And until the truth cut through all of it. The bridal room was quiet, lit by a single lamp near the mirror. The faint scent of lilies from the bouquet filled the air, sweet but sharp. My dress hung on the rack, untouched, its ivory fabric catching the morning light. I sat at the vanity, hands resting on my lap. The ticking of a wall clock echoed in the still space, each second slow and heavy. Outside the door, I could hear faint footsteps, voices moving pews, preparing hymns. But here, it felt like another world. I thought about Dad, somewhere in the sanctuary now. He'd be shaking hands, smiling, believing this day was still his blessing. He didn't know the storm waiting behind those doors. And part of me wanted to keep it that way. But I couldn't. Not when I pictured Samuel's grin at Hollow Creek. Not when I remembered Mom's soft laugh as she took that key. Every image, every sound, sat like stone in my chest. I rose and touched the dress. The fabric was smooth, cool under my fingers. It wasn't for Samuel anymore, and it sure wasn't for her. The mirror caught my reflection. Dark hair pulled back, circles under my eyes, but steady. For the first time in weeks, my face didn't look afraid. It looked ready. I opened my bag and pulled out the folder. Each document stacked neat receipts, records, video stills. The weight in my hands felt less like burden now, more like armor. A faint chime from the hall clock marked another hour closer. I slid the folder back and zipped it tight. No more hesitation. No more silence. The bouquet sat on the table beside me, its lilies leaning toward the window. I pushed it aside and let the space feel empty, clean, my own. In a few hours, the sanctuary would fill with whispers, smiles, and camera flashes. But this time, they'd see more than a wedding. They'd see the truth. And when it was done, I'd walk out not as a bride, but as someone finally free. If you've ever faced a moment where silence felt safer than truth, would you have spoken? Or walked away? Share your story below. You're not alone. The hallway outside the bridal room felt colder. Each step echoed off the wooden floor, sharp and hollow. Sunlight from the stained glass painted shifting blues and reds across the walls. Jenna waited near the sanctuary doors. She held her laptop close, screen dark, ready. The photographer stood by a side aisle, camera strapped tight across his chest, lens capped. The pews were filling fast. Guests murmured in low voices, their words rising and falling like waves. Every sound seemed to carry in the high-ceiling space, even the rustle of hymn sheets. I stepped closer to the doorway, letting my eyes adjust to the light inside. The polished wood pews gleamed under the soft glow of the chandeliers. The faint smell of wax and old cedar filled the air, grounding me. The quartet tuned their instruments, each note sharp, precise. Their soft chords floated through the space, calm but tense, like the pause before rain. Across the aisle, I saw the front pew reserved. Mom would sit there soon, her emerald dress bright under the colored light. Samuel would stand at the altar, tuxedo crisp, waiting with that same easy smile. And Dad, he'd be beside the aisle, proud, unaware. My stomach tightened, but my hands stayed steady at my sides. No shaking this time. No hesitation. Jenna met my gaze and gave a single nod. The video's ready. One button, she murmured. Her voice was quiet, meant only for me. I took a slow breath, the scent of cedar and wax filling my lungs. The murmurs behind us swelled as more guests arrived, heels clicking on the stone floor, greetings whispered in corners. From the vestibule, I could see the sun breaking through the stained glass, scattering bright shards of red and gold across the aisle runner. Each step I'd take down that path felt closer to an ending, and a beginning. The clock above the vestibule chimed the half-hour. 30 minutes left. My heart thudded once, heavy but even, like it had joined the count. I looked back toward the bridal room, now empty, the bouquet still on the table inside. That room felt like another life, a version of me who thought today would end in vows. I wasn't her anymore. The music swelled briefly as the quartet finished tuning. Then, silence. A deep, waiting quiet that pressed into every corner of the sanctuary. Jenna guided me toward a side hallway, away from the flow of guests. Her laptop glowed faint, muted so no one would notice. "The file is queued," she whispered. "Projection will hit the back wall and both side screens. No one will miss it." The photographer leaned against the corridor wall, camera in hand. "I'll keep to the shadows. Capture reactions, not chaos." The murmur of the sanctuary bled through the closed doors. Laughter, soft greetings. The scrape of shoes on polished floor. Every sound felt sharper now, like my nerves had tuned the world louder. I peeked through a narrow glass panel into the sanctuary. Dad stood near the front, clasping hands with an old friend from town. His silver hair caught the light from the stained glass, warm and soft. He looked calm, proud, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in months. The sight made my throat tighten. He still thought today was a celebration, a promise kept. Part of me wanted to turn around, let the folder burn, walk away. But the images in my mind, the barn, the key, the laughter, cut through that thought like a blade. Mom swept in through a side entrance. Emerald dress perfect, her posture straight. She greeted a cluster of church ladies, her laugh light and polished. The same laugh I heard at Hollow Creek, only now wrapped in Sunday sweetness. Jenna tapped my arm gently. "You okay?" Her voice was soft, steady, pulling me back. "I'm steady," I said, though my chest felt tight, every breath measured. I looked at the laptop again, at the frozen frame waiting to play. Samuel's hand on Mom's cheek, their silhouettes under the barn light. One press of a key, and the whole room would see. The photographer adjusted his lens, the faint click echoing down the empty corridor. Even that sound felt like part of the countdown. I exhaled, long and slow, the smell of candle wax and cedar lingering in the air. Jenna shut the laptop, sliding it into her bag until the moment came. "Once you walk down that aisle, it's yours," she murmured. Truth, not noise. The sanctuary doors opened briefly as another group of guests entered. Sunlight spilled across the aisle runner, then dimmed as the doors closed. The air felt heavier now, still, like the room itself knew what was coming. 15 minutes left. Each second ticked loud, matching the slow, heavy beat of my heart. The quartet began to play softly, their notes floating like threads through the air. The sound reached even the side hallway, low and steady, a reminder the moment was near. I stepped closer to the sanctuary doors, the bouquet still in my hand. The lilies smelled sharp, almost metallic, mixing with the polish of the wood floor. Every breath felt slow, deliberate. Through the crack of the door, I saw him. Samuel, at the altar, tuxedo fitted perfectly, his expression calm. That same easy grin he used when promising things he'd never keep. He spoke quietly with the pastor, his hand adjusting his cufflinks as if nothing was coming. My fingers tightened around the stems of the bouquet. Not shaking, just firm. I studied every line of his face, memorizing the mask he wore so well. The pews were nearly full now. Whispers carried, soft but constant, weaving through the sound of the music. The air inside looked heavy, filled with a mix of perfume, candle smoke, and faint dust rising under the sunlight streaming through the stained glass. Dad appeared near the vestibule, straightening his tie, smiling toward the guests. He didn't see me yet, tucked in the shadow of the hallway. For a moment, my chest tightened, a pull to spare him the shock, but the folder in my bag felt heavier, grounding me. Truth wasn't something I could keep burying. Jenna approached from behind, laptop in her arms. "All set," she whispered. One signal, and the screens light up. The photographer nodded from his place by the rear pews. Lens already in hand. His movements were quiet, precise, like he was part of the walls. The music swelled as the quartet shifted to Pachelbel's canon, the familiar notes ringing clear. Guests began to rise, their movements soft, the rustle of fabric echoing faintly. I stepped into the vestibule, the runner stretching out before me, white against the dark wood. Sunlight poured through the glass, scattering colors across my dress as I stepped into place. The coordinator gave a nod. "Time to start," she whispered, pushing the doors open. The sanctuary doors swung wide. Music rose, voices hushed, every eye turning toward me. I drew one breath, deep and slow, the lilies scent sharp in my lungs. My eyes locked on Samuel, still smiling. On Mom, radiant in emerald, her hands folded neatly in her lap. And I took my first step down the aisle, knowing every face here was about to see the truth. The music swelled as I reached the aisle's midpoint. Each note of Pachelbel's canon echoed up into the high rafters, soft but heavy. 200 eyes followed me, their whispers now replaced with silence. The sunlight through the stained glass splashed red and gold across the runner. Each step, my shoes pressed against it with a dull, steady rhythm, not shaking, not rushing, just moving forward. Samuel stood at the altar, his grin easy, his shoulders loose. He looked every inch the man people thought he was. Calm, polished, devoted. I could almost see him counting the seconds until the ceremony erased every shadow. Mom sat in the front pew, emerald dress shining under the glass, colored light. Her posture was perfect, hands folded over a lace handkerchief. She dabbed the corner of her eyes as if already overcome by joy. But her gaze flicked to Samuel once, quick and sharp, before she turned back toward the aisle. The organ dipped low, a soft pause as the music transitioned. My heart thudded, heavy but even, matching the rhythm of the notes. Jenna stood at the side, near the sound table. Laptop already open, finger resting over the spacebar. She didn't look at me, only at the pastor as he stepped forward. The pastor's voice rang clear through the chapel's speakers. Dearly beloved, we gather here today to witness the union of Harper Lane and Samuel Cole in holy matrimony. The words felt distant, like they floated over me instead of sinking in. I looked around the sanctuary. Friends, coworkers, neighbors, all waiting for the story they thought they knew. Samuel's hand reached for mine as I stepped beside him. His fingers were warm, his grip confident. I didn't flinch, but I didn't squeeze back. The pastor's voice continued, steady and practiced. Marriage is not to be entered into lightly, but reverently and with truth in our hearts. My gaze drifted toward Jenna. Her eyes met mine for a brief second. A silent question. Ready? I gave the faintest nod. Her finger hovered closer to the key. Samuel shifted beside me, oblivious. His thumb brushed my knuckles, casual, practiced. I could almost hear his low laugh from Hollow Creek echoing in the back of my mind. The pastor's voice rose. If anyone here knows just cause why these two should not be joined, speak now or forever hold your peace. Jenna's hand pressed the key. The music cut mid-note. The quartet's bows froze in the air. Every head turned toward the back wall as the lights dimmed. The screen flickered once, then brightened. The video filled it. Hollow Creek barn, moonlight pale, shadows long. Samuel's voice, low and smooth, carried through the speakers. After the wedding, everything stays ours. Jasps rippled through the pews. Wooden seats creaked as people leaned forward. A hymn book slipped from someone's hands, the thud sharp in the silence. On screen, Mom's hand brushed Samuel's arm, her scarf bright under the barn's light. Her laugh, soft, intimate, echoed louder than the organ ever could. Judge Mitchell from the second row stood, his face pale. A whisper spread, sharp and fast, threading through the sanctuary. Is that Evelyn? Samuel. This can't be real. Dad turned slowly in the front pew. His silver brows knit tight as he stared at the screen, then at Mom. She froze, her lace handkerchief still clutched between white, knuckled fingers. Samuel stepped forward, his face drained of color. Turn it off, he snapped, his voice breaking the stunned hush. But no one moved. The pastor's mouth opened, closed. Words failing as the footage continued. Samuel's hand cupping Mom's cheek, her voice whispering, "Worth the risk." A woman near the aisle gasped loud, the sound breaking the tension into murmurs. Phones came out, screens lighting up as guests recorded the moment. The clicking of shutters filled the space, mixing with low, stunned voices. Dad rose to his feet. His voice, deep but steady, carried over the whispers. "Evelyn, tell me this isn't true." Mom stood slowly, her emerald dress catching the fractured light. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. Her eyes darted to Samuel, searching for a shield. He only looked at the floor. The screen faded to black. The sanctuary's silence returned, heavier now, like the air itself had weight. All eyes turned to me. I stood still at the altar, hands at my sides, bouquet resting against the floor. My chest rose slow, steady, no tremor in my breath. I didn't speak. Not yet. The quiet said enough. The last echo of the video faded. The screen went black, leaving only the colored light from the stained glass. Every breath in the sanctuary felt loud, uneven. I turned toward the congregation, my voice steady. "No vows today. No lies either. You all deserve to know. No shouting. No tears. Just words clear enough to cut through the heavy air." Samuel opened his mouth, but nothing came. His jaw worked, searching for a defense. But the room stayed still. Even the pastor didn't move, his hands frozen over his Bible. Mom's lace handkerchief dropped to the pew, landing soft on the wood. Her face, pale and rigid, turned toward Dad. He didn't look at her. He kept his eyes on me, a silent nod, small but sure. I stepped down from the altar. Each footfall echoed, dull against the polished floor. The bouquet brushed my leg as I walked past the first row, the lilies scent sharp in the air. Murmurs swelled behind me. Some voices sharp with anger, others hushed with disbelief. Wooden pews creaked as guests stood shifting, trying to make sense of what they'd seen. The heavy chapel doors opened with a low groan. A gust of warm air swept in, carrying the faint scent of magnolia and rain-soaked earth. The sunlight outside was brighter than I expected, almost blinding. Behind me, voices rose. Questions, whispers, the scrape of shoes on wood. Someone called Samuel's name, another muttered Mom's. Their tones sharp. The photographer's shutter clicked again, a staccato rhythm trailing me out. I stepped onto the stone steps of Grace Hollow Chapel. The breeze hit my face, cool despite the summer heat. For the first time all day, I let my shoulders drop. Inside, the murmurs grew louder, a wave building. But out here, it was still. Only the cicadas and the distant sound of a car horn in the street. Jenna appeared behind me, her laptop bag slung over her shoulder. She didn't speak. Just walked beside me as I crossed the gravel lot. At the edge of the lot, I turned once, looking back at the open chapel doors. A flash of emerald, a raised voice, and Dad's silver hair among the shifting crowd. Then I faced forward again. Whatever happened inside now belonged to them. I had said what I came to say. And I wasn't walking back. A week after Grace Hollow, the quiet felt different. Not heavy. Not sharp. Just still. I'd packed 2 suitcases and left Savannah before dawn. The road north was empty, the sky pale and streaked with low clouds. By midday, I reached a small rental cottage near Charleston, tucked between dunes and weathered pines. The air smelled of salt and sun, bleached wood. Every breeze carried a faint tang of seaweed, soft and clean. The sound of the surf was constant, a low hush rolling in and out like breath. The cottage creaked when I stepped inside. Its floors were old pine, scuffed from years of bare feet and sandy shoes. A single window faced the water, the glass rattling softly as the wind shifted. I dropped my bags near the sofa and sank into the worn cushions. The silence here wasn't the kind that presses down. It let me breathe. My phone buzzed once in my pocket. Another message from Jenna. News is still spreading. You okay? I typed back a single line. Getting there. I looked out at the waves through the rattling window. The horizon stretched wide, unbroken, the water shifting from gray to deep green as clouds passed. For the first time in weeks, my chest didn't feel tight. The folder sat on the counter, still zipped. I hadn't opened it since walking out of the chapel. The papers and video inside no longer felt like weapons. Just records of something I'd survived. I poured a glass of water, the faucet sputtering before the stream ran clear. The cold glass felt solid in my hand, grounding. Outside, gulls cried faintly over the dunes, their calls rising and falling with the wind. I took the glass to the porch and sat on the top step. The boards were rough beneath my bare feet, warm from the afternoon sun. The sea air tasted clean, a little bitter, but sharp enough to make me feel awake. For the first time since that envelope slid under my door, I didn't feel like I was bracing for impact. I just existed, and it felt like a start. 2 nights later, the wind off the water rattled the porch screen as my phone buzzed. Dad's name lit up the screen. I answered, leaning back against the wooden rail. His voice was warm, a little tired. Vermont's colder than I remembered, but peaceful. The congregation here is small, kind. No gossip, just hymns and coffee. I closed my eyes, listening to the faint hum of his kettle through the line. For the first time since Grace Hollow, his words sounded light, like he wasn't carrying her shadow anymore. "You sound better," I said softly. A pause. "So do you?" he answered, his voice dipping low. When we hung up, I stayed on the porch, the sound of the surf rolling steady below. The horizon was dark, the sky cut by a silver sliver of moon. Jenna's message came a few minutes later. Zoom link. Women's circle. Join if you want. I hesitated, thumb hovering over the screen, then tapped. Faces filled the phone. 10 women, all different. But their eyes held the same quiet strength. A teacher from Texas, a retired Marine from Ohio, a baker from North Carolina. Each had a story. Each had been cut open by betrayal and stitched themselves back together. They talked in calm voices, not angry, just real. About the nights they couldn't sleep, the mornings they had to start over, the way silence can crush until you decide it won't. I didn't share much that first night. Just listened, the waves outside sensing with their voices in my ear. It felt safe, not like Savannah gossip or whispers in pews. This was steady ground. When the call ended, the porch felt even quieter. But not empty. Their words lingered, threading through the steady rush of the tide. I looked back through the screen door. The folder still sat unopened on the counter. For the first time, I thought maybe I could throw it away soon. Not to forget, but because I didn't need it anymore. My proof, my armor, had already done its job. Now it was time to start building something that would last. By the end of that week, the rhythm of the coast felt like my own. Mornings began with the cry of gulls and the smell of salt carried through open windows. The cottage creaked as the sun warmed its walls, each sound familiar now, not foreign. I walked the beach each day at sunrise, the sand cool beneath my feet. The tide left patterns in the shore, long arcs like someone had traced them by hand. Each step felt easier, the tension in my shoulders loosening with every mile of empty coastline. On the porch in the afternoons, I read letters from strangers. Women Jenna had connected me with. A widow in Oregon who rebuilt her life at 50. A small business owner in Maine who lost everything, then found her footing again. Their words carried a quiet strength, like low tide pulling steady toward something new. I started a journal, my handwriting uneven at first. Not to relive Savannah or Grace Hollow, but to map what came next. Maybe a clinic here by the coast. Maybe a foundation for women who needed a place to start again. Something that wasn't tied to anyone else's name but mine. The evenings were the calmest. The sun dipped low, turning the horizon soft pink and deep gold. The sea breeze wrapped around the cottage, cool and clean, as the waves rolled their steady rhythm. I sat with my glass of water, not wine, and watched the day fade. The folder still rested on the counter inside, but its weight no longer mattered. It wasn't my anchor anymore. The horizon darkened, and I felt something settle in my chest. Not sadness. Not even relief. Just peace. The kind that comes when you stop looking backward and finally see what's ahead. If you've ever had to rebuild after betrayal, did you find your own ground? Or are you still searching for it? Share your story below. You're not alone, and neither was I. After walking out of Grace Hollow Chapel, I thought the quiet would feel like defeat. It didn't. It felt like a door finally closing. I didn't win back my mother or my fiancé. I didn't mend what they broke. But I stopped carrying their choices like they were my shame. The week by the coast taught me something I should have known long ago. Peace isn't about erasing the past. It's about not letting the past write the rest of your story. I don't need to rebuild what I lost. I need to build something new, something that carries my name, my choices, my legacy. Some betrayals don't get forgiveness. And that's okay. Forgiveness isn't the same as pretending it never happened. Sometimes, justice is just telling the truth and walking away with your head high. If you've been betrayed, know this. You don't have to burn yourself to keep someone else warm. You don't have to stay silent to keep a family whole. Truth can hurt, but it can also free you. And freedom, even when it's quiet, can feel like the first breath after years underwater.